Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs Cast, live from the Wolf Den. I'm Chris.
And I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about Week 7, and a big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And it is Halloween coming up, so you can scare this channel as well.
Today we'll be talking about your Kansas City Chiefs with, well, just me and Josh tonight. No Brian and no guest.
Exactly, but we are presented by Complete Weddings and Events, as always, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Please visit them at completewedo.com. Unfortunately, they're not a provider of defensive stops or apparently non-interceptions. So there's that. So I guess the big thing that we need to get into, Chris, is what are we doing here? And I think the big question is, at 3-4, this is obviously not what any of us thought we were going to be doing. In fact, I believe that we picked the team to go 13-4 or 14-3. So we're technically not out of that at this point. And if you recall back to 2015, that is something that, I mean, this specific, in some capacity team has done before. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. However, things aren't looking great at this point. So let's kind of just talk a little bit. How did we get to where we are?
Well, I think a lot of it, we keep talking about the turnovers. I mean, that's just one thing, which, turnovers can be unlucky too. There's a yin and a yang some years to turnovers, and go Tank 7. But, sometimes they just come in spurts, and maybe the spurt is coming to an end. I hope so, because it's going to keep them from winning enough games to get to the playoffs. But I mean, it's also, the defense just is terrible, and the offense is not adapting to what's being played against them on the opposition's defense. That in itself, I think, is fixable. The defense, I said this on Sunday, I think it's beyond repairable. However, there are some, young athletes on that side of the ball that have some ceiling, and maybe you can luck out and get, again, the yin and the yang. Maybe you can start forcing some turnovers. You saw Willie Gay do that with a pretty awesome interception.
From
Tershawn Wharton 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So, and Colin Saunders actually played pretty well on Sunday. So, just
Nick Bolton was the dude.
He was incredible. But, just stop leaning on the guys that you rely on being in the right spot, and just start throwing caution to the wind and just get the young guys out there and get them playing.
Yep. Okay. So that kind of gets into the next place that I was going to go, which is, how can we correct some of this? And I would say that I'm kind of with you that the defense is not a quick repair. I mean, so we had our open thread that we put up on Arrowhead Kingdom. As you know, I write for a site called Arrowhead One. I put up an article this week where I compared just some of what I'm seeing as the expectations to, European soccer. I can go pretty deep, like way deeper than, I think a lot of people that I talk about NFL football with know. And the comparison that I made is the two biggest clubs in the world for soccer are Barcelona and Real Madrid. They both play in big cities in Spain. They play in the Liga. And generally speaking, the board and the owners of the team and the fans consider that season just a complete failure of a loss if they don't win the La Liga League, if they don't win the Champions League, and if they don't win the Spanish Cup. And so I painted a picture of how in the past 10 years, they've been one of the two best teams in La Liga, and they've been in the Champions League every single year, which is the way that I referenced it is it's the equivalent of an NFL team that's won 4 Super Bowls, that's played in 8 of them, and has never missed the playoffs and is always either winning their division or close. And you're still firing the coach every other year and completely turning over the roster because that's just not good enough. And it's just this ridiculous ambition. But the economics of soccer allow that to be possible because you can go out and buy any player. I mean, contracts truly mean nothing. They truly mean nothing. They're less useful than a contract for a practice team player. It's just simply a deal of you decide you want a player, there's 2 times during the year, and you just throw the amount of money needed to the team that they're playing for, and you can take that player from any team. And the 2 best examples are actually a French team called Paris Saint-Germain, and they bought a player off of Barcelona and then another one off of another French team. But they spent 400 million euro in 2 transactions to just take this player. So that would be the equivalent of the Dallas Cowboys have no amount of money that they're capped on spending, and Jerry Jones could call Clark Hunt and say, I'm giving you $200 million and Patrick Mahomes is playing for me next week. And that's how that works. And so not only do I think that the idea that we seem to be, demanding perfection or burn the team down, that's kind of been annoying me with some of the fan base here recently. But it's not economically possible. I truly believe that if Clark Hunt had the ability to throw money at things and correct it, that he would. But let's just say that we decide that the coaches are the problem. In this scenario, if Real Madrid decided to fire their coach, you would have no shortage of every coach with ambition to win a bunch of trophies and get paid well, waiting with an entire staff, and they could all get out of their contracts in the course of a week, and they could be coaching, next week. So let's just say we decide that the coaching staff is the problem. Brett Veach is the problem. We're going to fire Veach. We're going to fire Reed. We're going to fire Spagnuolo. What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, Clark Hunt, the Hunt family might as well sell the team at that point. I mean, come on.
Exactly. I mean, you're lighting the entire thing on fire. And so the whole point that I was making there is that I feel like we really just need to stay the course on this season. If you want to make changes, go for it. We can tell Reed that he's retiring. We can tell Veach that he's no longer, needed with this team, or he's getting demoted back to some scouting position. So there's a scenario we could look at that. I mean, I guess you could fire Spagnuolo as the coordinator and, throw like Brent says, a trained chimpanzee in there to tell Nick Bolton and Willie Gay to run at the quarterback as fast as possible. That argument I would actually understand. I really would. If you were going to bring somebody in that just says, screw it, we're playing full court basketball, we're selling out for the steal every single time, which is kind of what you're suggesting. And I'm not even going to say that that's necessarily wrong, because if you look at the Bills game, when they're scoring in 2 minutes on these long ass plays, we might as well be doing that, right? Try to jump every single route. But I refuse to believe that this ship can't be righted. There's 7 teams in the playoffs right now, and I still don't believe that the Raiders are actually real. I don't believe that the Browns are going to close the deal. And then after that, any one of the other 5 teams could falter, but those are the 2 that I think are the most likely.
Yeah, we still kind of we control our own destiny to a point, because we've only played 1 division game.
Yeah,
I mean, we still got 5 coming up here.
Yeah,
but to go back to the whole, fire Steve Spagnuolo, fire Andy Reid, Brett Veach. I mean, do people realize that this is the same staff that got this team to 2 straight Super Bowls?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have they maybe hung on too long to, what made them so successful in 2019? Probably. And what we're going to find out this year, especially, I mean, I've said this for the last month, but I'm going to keep saying it because there's still 10 games to go in the season, is we're going to find out if a leopard can change its spots, because it's going to have to on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, then clean house on the defensive coaching staff. On offense, I mean, I think some of it lies with Andy Reid. I think some of it lies with Eric Bieniemy, and I think some of it lies with Patrick Mahomes. I think some of it lies with the offensive line. There's a lot of things to point at here, but this is still the same organization that got you to 14-2 last year and came back from 6-4 in 2019 and won a Super Bowl. That I echo your sentiment that it's just obnoxious seeing all these people just basically, throwing gasoline on a fire and just wanting to see everyone gone and cleaning house. And
doing it under the guise of, well, I'm still a true fan, but I'm calling it like it is. I mean, it's just, it's kind of getting ridiculous.
No, and they had a plan. I think they probably hung on to that plan 1 year too long. Mm-hmm. They have a core of players that they like, or you can even say they love, and they tried to kind of do two things. They tried to serve two masters by holding on to those players and also try and build, namely on the offensive line, and it's not working out the way that they would have hoped. I don't think that they're just playing everything by ear. So, again, we'll find about the coaching staff the rest of this year, and then we'll find out about Brett Veach and the personnel in this offseason because, there's a lot that needs to be – a lot of roster needs to be turned over, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think we're both on the same page that we think that this coaching staff, including Spagnuolo, stays intact for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Right. He's not going anywhere. You're not going to fire. If you fire him in season, guess what? You're bringing someone. Either the interim is going to be calling a similar game, or there's not going to be a big change in scheme.
And realistically speaking, we might as well go NBA tank mode and do what I'm going to call fly the plane into the mountain. We're benching every single starter that we want back next year just to take some miles off the odometer. So to me, that means bare minimum Kelsey and Mahomes. We're just benching them, and we're going to throw everybody else in and just, shoot for having a 4-1 season, a 3-4 win season. We'll accidentally, with the personnel we have, win another game, but we'll go 4-13. And, it's laughable to even think about that. And the NFL is not built that way. And even if we did that, I don't know that we're going to rebuild that quickly. So here's what I want to do with you, actually. We're going to identify 4 individuals that I think you, just based on their title, should be taking the most blame. And we're going to go through, we'll kind of switch off back and forth. And the one that I'm going to go with first, I'll play the, con side as to why they should be gone right now. And I want to see what your commentary would be, and we'll kind of flip for the next one. So the order that we're going to go in is Veach, Reed, Spagnuolo, and Mahomes, because as the highest paid player and the captain of the team, you're part of this soup as well. So let's talk about Veach. So the arguments as to why he's just completely screwing this team up and why he needs to be gone and he's the biggest problem, the stuff that I've seen, and the more you read it, the more compelling the argument kind of looks. And the most compelling thing that I've seen is that realistically speaking, the players that he's brought in have been failures, and the best stars that we have are remnants of the John Dorsey era. And so obviously Brett Veach has sat and done absolutely nothing, and he's brought in questionable player personnel. Obviously, he hit the lottery with Trey Smith in the 6th round, but anybody's capable of hitting the lottery. You just go and you buy the damn ticket.
What he's hit the lottery with Rashad Fenton too.
Yeah, what he's also done, what he's also done is lit 2 first-round draft picks on fire by getting Frank Clark and Orlando Brown, and he probably lit the 3rd one on fire with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So with all of that, aside from the Rashad Fenton to add on to the Trey Smith, what would your counterpoint be to Brett Veach doing a good job?
Well, I think he's done a good job. Again, I go back to the plan. I think he's trying to keep this window open.
Yeah.
But I think I think the move that has doomed him the most has been Frank Clark, no doubt in my mind. I think that just had a domino effect into, now we only have $3 million under the cap, which has now handcuffed us from making some trades. There probably could be a trade that could help the team, but they just can't afford to do it. But, in terms of what he's done well, I mean, the fact that Patrick Mahomes is on the team is largely because of him, and he can always hang his hat on that. I think that he did a really good job in 2019. A lot of people were singing his praises in the offseason before 2020. I mean, everyone was saying how perfect the Chiefs offseason was going into 2020. Although, I would argue that the Chris Jones extension was probably not a good idea. And I know I'm somewhat on the minority and got in an argument with Seth Kaiser one time about it. But, these big contracts, eventually are going to catch up to you. And this team has been largely built on, I hear the argument called stars and jags. And there's, a handful of players that are taking up a majority of the cap. And then the rest of it are, draft picks and guys like Dan Sorensen and Demarcus Robinson that, you're very top heavy and you're not very, very deep. Now, I'm not to go back to the pro on Brett Veach. Still, he built a roster that won a Super Bowl and made it back and was arguably, maybe an offensive line and some other things off the field from, maybe winning a second, stuff that you can't control. So, I mean, he absolutely deserves a grace period. And again, I'm not going to judge him until this next offseason when he really does have to start turning things over, because he can't just hold on to this core another year.
Yep. So I 100% agree with you. I like Veach. I really do. I agree with you on the Mahomes thing. I understand where people are coming from with the Dorsey thing. I really do. Here's a few things that I'm going to pick out. So the Frank Clark situation, I think, is the most unfortunate thing that we have going on. Edge rusher is the most important defensive position. And I truly do believe that the team and Ernest believe that they were going and making a good trade to shore up that position. Was there a way to look in a crystal ball and see that Frank Clark was going to go and carry a bag of Uzis around in LA? You could argue that you knew he was a bad guy. You could. And the only thing that I would say back to that is find the one team in the NFL that's full of Boy Scouts. And I bet the closest one is going to be Detroit or Jacksonville. So there you go.
Find a GM that makes every perfect move with a big contract. I mean,
well, exactly.
It's a big risk, and he took one.
Exactly.
And again, he's had a plan this whole time. He wanted an edge rusher.
Exactly.
He tried to re-sign Chris Jones that year. Chris Jones wanted a lot more money than he deserved.
Yep.
So he went and got Frank Clark. That was a domino effect there.
Exactly. So, there's a what if game right there. What if Chris Jones would have been gettable and you didn't have to get Frank Clark?
Yeah, he signed just 4 for 84 that year, not the year after.
Yeah, exactly. And then so, Chris Jones, I understood 100% where you were coming from. But the reason that you make that contract, and I understood it in the moment, is, what if he leaves and goes and becomes Aaron Donald 2.0? Which that was a risk. That was a risk. And then the bigger risk is, what if he does it not in the NFC? Let's just say that he decides to be really pissed off and decides to go sign with Denver or Oakland or Chargers, something like that. And there's a level of, I understood why that contract was being made. I also understood in the moment that it was being completely emotional, and that the stone cold-hearted Patriot way would have been to let him walk. So, there's that. So we can call the Chris Jones contract, the time and place situation with that, kind of a ding. Kind of going back to Frank Clark here for a second. What have we been picking in the draft? I mean, this is research that I totally could have done, but name one elite edge rusher that was picked in the bottom half of the first round or ended up being a lottery ticket in the 2nd through 7th. I know there are some, because we've had too many seasons.
Max Crosby is maybe the only person I could come up with.
Yeah, there you go. And I didn't even think of that one. It's one of those deals where elite edge rushers, you either buy them or you're drafting in the top 10.
Yep.
That's it. We weren't doing the second one, so we did the first one. and to a degree, get off his nuts. He grabbed the wrong guy, it just, that's where that's at.
Okay. No, and you can argue that Frank Clark still helped his team win the Super Bowl. I mean,
he did. And
he was very good for that second half of the season, and he was very effective in the postseason.
Exactly. So then the last thing that I think we can talk about is Brett Veach's actions this last offseason. The whole thing with the Super Bowl, there's the story that he walked off the field with Mahomes and said, we're going to fix the offensive line. I'm not really sure what else you want from the guy. Was Orlando Brown the first choice? Absolutely not. Who was the first choice? You remember this, right?
Trent Williams.
Exactly. And why did he not come to play for us? Because he took an extra couple million from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, did that happen because the Frank Clark contract maybe prevented that? I don't know, maybe. But outside of that, I mean, every single critic and analyst that knows way more about football than any of us do, that, cover the Chiefs as a fun gig like you and I do, or the people that comment on social media, said that Orlando Brown was a good number 2 to that. Yeah. And if that works out, Brett Veach is a genius. It isn't working out. Oh, well, Orlando Brown's a right tackle. It's just, get out of here. Get out of here. I mean, the whole thing's just insane. I don't know what else you do there. There's absolutely no holes to poke in the guard center right guard position.
No, he did everything that everyone was saying he needed to do this offseason. And we came out of the preseason thinking, oh my gosh, this team is better than last year. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's the fact that some people turn on him so quickly is just
exactly.
It's maddening.
So moving on from Veach, we have Reed Spagnuolo and Mahomes left. I'm going to actually change the order on this, and we're going to put Reed last. So I want to go to Spags next, and you got the negative on this one. Why should Spags be gone yesterday?
Just look at the stat page. I mean, it speaks for itself. The fact that he was. I also think that Brett Veach didn't sign Dan Sorensen in 1 year, $1.4 million to make him the starting deep safety. I think that there was a disconnect there as far as who should have been playing that position. It just doesn't feel like the team really all the miscommunication could have possibly been because Spagnuolo is criticized for having a complicated scheme. He likes to disguise his coverages. He likes to bring up exotic blitzes. Clearly, this team wasn't able to execute that, and still really hasn't been able to execute that. And the fact that he still hasn't fully adapted, he at least is adapted by getting Sorensen and Ben Neiman not on the field as much. But the fact that he was holding on to Dan Sorensen for as long as he was, that alone was maddening to a lot of us. And he kind of has this track record too, where this happened to him with the Giants. After he beat Tom Brady in that 18-0 Patriots team, the next couple of years weren't so great with that defense, and he was shown the door pretty quickly as well too. So I guess that's I don't want him fired today, I think, but still, I mean, he's had one of the worst starts in NFL history as a defensive coordinator.
Let me ask you this: movie Moneyball. What are your thoughts on that movie?
Great movie.
It's an incredible movie. Yeah. So I understand there are novelistic type of approaches. The writer for that book, actually my favorite book that he did is called Boomerang, where it talks about a lot of the financial situations in foreign governments. He also wrote The Big Short. But so the part that fascinated me the most, and there's been enough rumblings that there's some inaccuracies and kind of Hollywood liberties taken here, but some of my favorite part of that movie is the interaction between Brad Pitt's character, Billy B, and the GM, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, Art Howe, the coach and the manager. And so while there might be liberties and there might be he said, she said, or he said type of things going on, what I truly believe in my core from watching that and reading the book is that those two didn't get along and they weren't on the same page. And you can sit there and decide whoever you think is the hero and the villain in this situation, but there's the whole deal where they're sitting there arguing. It's just like, okay, I should have looped you in more and told you what we were trying to do from a roster standpoint. And the manager's just like, dude, F you didn't up me. And I have no interest in being part of whatever it is you're trying to do. And my favorite line in that entire movie is just like, I am going to run this team in a way that I can explain in a job interview. And there's a level of that I just kind of see with Steve Spagnuolo. And it's not even necessarily him saying, I'm going to run this team in a way that I can explain in a job interview. It's like Juan Thornhill. I want to know what he did. I really do.
I do too. I mean, there had to have been something, really but still, I mean, come on.
I mean, it's a level of petty, but it's just like, dude, I don't know what the Spagnuolo's family situation is, but like, did he hook up with your daughter or some shit like that after
I don't know,
after a team event? Cause I mean, I love Sorensen. I do too. And
he has a place on the team.
Sorensen.
He does. Yeah.
But the stuff we love about him is not him starting. It's him being opportunistic, which I think he is.
Being a dime linebacker in the special teams ace.
It's him being gritty, which he is. And I think that some of the most unfortunate stuff that's going on right now is that Sorensen is getting torched, and he's moving himself into Lynn Elliott status, which is unfair.
Yeah,
completely unfair, because he's made plays that have won us massively impactful playoff games, and a lot of it's that he's getting put in a position that he shouldn't be in. And if there's anything that I would say that Spag should be fired for, it's that you're slandering Dan Sorensen by the way that you run this defense. But I'm with you. I don't know who you're replacing him with. I really don't. And I refuse to acknowledge any coordinator off the street's going to do a better job. No, I don't believe that at all. I really don't. And another movie that I love, Up in the Air, with George Clooney, where he goes around and downsizes people for companies. So my favorite line in that movie is when Jason Bateman, who's the a-hole who runs that team, if you will, and Anna Kendrick, he brings her in and just goes, Natalie came in and said that she saw a problem with what we're doing. And I told her there's only a problem if you have a solution. And that's my belief on our defense. There's only a problem if you have a solution. There's clearly a problem, but there's only a fixable problem if you have a solution. And I do not believe there's a solution.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't see the horses, especially on the edge. It's really surprising to me just how much they've struggled at the cornerback position. I mean, Ward has been hurt most of the year, but again, I said this, I was really impressed by how deep they look in the secondary. I remember saying that back when we had Darvin on. And unfortunately, it hasn't been that way. Mike Hughes has really struggled. He's, and L'Jarius Sneed actually has not been playing up to what I hoped. I see a lot of players getting behind him, which, I wasn't expecting this year. But yeah, that's the cornerback position and the edge positions have disappointed.
I expected Sneed to be a star, and for all rights and purposes, he sucks right now. He just does. I mean, he's just not good. Nobody's playing well.
Yeah. His advanced stats are pretty damning right now too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that's most frustrating to watch is you watch Tyrann Mathieu and you can tell that he's just a dude that's a pot that's boiling over. And I completely understand who he is and what he's doing. I have never been the best athlete on any piece of land that I've ever stepped on in my entire life. There have been a couple of times where I've been the best player on whatever team it is, whether we're playing pickup basketball or sand volleyball or something like that. And I always just have this thing where it's just like, dude, we are effed if I'm the best player here. Because
for me, I'd have to be sitting in an old folks' home. Then I'm the most athletic person. But
exactly. It's just like it's just like, I am not the best player here, and it's a major problem if that's even remotely true. And as a counter, Tyrann Mathieu probably been the best athlete on a lot of fields that he's been on.
Mm-hmm.
And on the defensive
he was a
side,
freaking at LSU. Oh
exactly.
my gosh.
And on the defensive side of our ball, he is hands down the best guy. And so I just think about like the company softball team, and you bring in a guy that's a ringer. It's like, your college buddies or whatever. And you get a guy that had played a little college ball, and they come out and they're just like, oh, I just like to play. And I'm not a very social individual, and I want to be out here and everything. And then you just can see this visible frustration just look on their face, that they know that they are hands down carrying this team to a sub 500 record. And you're just furious at all of your teammates every single play because none of them can make what you would consider routine. And you're just frustrated the entire time, and it ends up making you play worse. And that's where I see Mathau right now. And it's just a deal where I don't think that he notices that if he would just look past his nose, that he could probably make some minor corrections with Snead. He could probably play up his young linebackers that are actually playing pretty well. And he could gain a little bit of solidarity with, Chris Jones. So what we need is to remember the Titans moment, because remember this last game, we got our asses kicked by the Titans. The thing where they're doing the left side, strong side type of thing. So I'm hoping that's what's happening in practice this week. I really am. Yeah, I'd say that we're in agreement that firing Spagnuolo would be a ridiculous situation, because there's nothing better that you're going to find.
No, you're going to have Matt House probably as your defensive coordinator, or
exactly.
Brendan Daly. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. And your players are your players. Okay, so let's talk Mahomes next. And so I'm going to go ahead and give the con on this one. And I take no pleasure in this, but I'll bring up the stuff. The dude's reckless. He's just 100% reckless. And as much as I make all these comments that Mathau just doesn't trust any of the people on his unit, I understand where he's coming from. I get the impression that Patrick Mahomes is showing some of those same looks where he's mean mugging the rest of his teammates, and he doesn't trust the rest of his offensive unit. And that's kind of insane. And it's forcing him to play out of his element. He's not trusting a line that he's giving a chance, that he's not even giving him a chance to give him any kind of protection. You can be mad at Orlando Brown for letting Bud Dupree through this whole last weekend, but that has nothing to do with all the interceptions, because you're bailing the weeks before. He's leaving the pocket way too early. He's not actually going through an offensive progression and reading anything. And he's just mad about the stuff he doesn't have, as opposed to taking what he does have. He can't get any of the long plays, and he's pissed. So he just isn't going to throw the 5-yard out that could turn into a 15-yard gain. And it just seems like his head is just kind of off. So what's your counterpoint to that?
If you're telling me that Patrick Mahomes on a down year means that you only won 3 of your first 7 games, that's not bad. He's still this offense before the Titan game was still statistically, I think they were better than they were last year, ironically.
I'm aware of all this stuff, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I'm not going to just point at Orlando Brown. I'm going to point at really both the tackles. I mean, he came up with Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. And Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, especially Fisher, were athletes. Those guys could at least stay in front of people. It allowed Pat to be in his comfort zone, which is drifting back and allowing receivers to get more depth. he doesn't have that with this offensive line, and yeah, he has to make adjustments. Um, but I mean, if this team had Chad Henne starting for it, I mean, where do you think they are right now? He's still he's still top three in the NFL at his position, and you can argue, between him, Brady, and Rodgers where he sits on that. But
Yep.
um, I still feel like he he has room to grow. He's 26 years old,
Yep.
and I'll talk about this a little bit later on with my week as a song. But I mean, there's still plenty of time, and a lot of us, well, half of us still think that there's still an opportunity to get into the postseason and make noise because of 15, because he can go
Yep.
405 any given day.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna bail off this stupid discussion right now. Patrick Mahomes is one, forgetting that he gave us something that nobody else could come up with in 50 years. Fine, pull out all the stats that Brady got better help and so forth. It's just, I still believe that this team is making the playoffs, and there is nobody that wants Kansas City to come to town with Patrick Mahomes during wild card weekend or whatever the hell they're calling this first weekend at this point with 17 teams, whatever.
No, but I mean, so to go back to, okay, Brady has better players, but Brady's also, I mean, he knows when to hold him, he knows when to fold him, and I think
Yes, Kenny Rogers, he does.
yes, he does. The one thing I haven't done yet, I would kind of like to do is look at Brady's early career, and maybe Peyton Manning and some of these other guys who kind of went through maybe a bit of a slump, maybe in year 3 or 4,
Yep.
and then they learned, they were able to, let's say, okay, they are able to check down, they are able to have better pocket presence. I think all of that is out there for Patrick Mahomes, and he can still do what he did the last 3 years to be
Yep.
successful. And if you can do all that, look out.
Yep.
But
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So last one, Andy Reid, you are on the con.
yeah, I don't know. Has the league caught up to Andy Reid? I mean, that's the big question here. I don't see a whole lot of difference in what they do offensively this year than they did in 2018, to be honest with you. I think it's still a lot of the same type of route combinations, concepts. I don't think he does a very good job of putting Patrick or giving Patrick Mahomes options to actually check down to. Um, I made the comment just saying that that was I think that was Andy Reid's worst game coaching as the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs this past Sunday.
Mhm.
Um, you
Without a
know,
doubt,
uh,
actually.
well, I mean the home opener against the Titans in 2014 was pretty awful too, but he didn't have Patrick Mahomes in that game. But and
I don't
also a
even
few
remember that
guys.
game.
Oh, I think both Derek Johnson and Eric Berry went down with ACLs. Like it was a
Right. Then what the
huge
hell are we
fluky
talking about?
game.
I mean,
But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's very possible that Andy Reid maybe doesn't have as much innovation as he used to, and the game has caught up with him. And if so, either he needs to start turning the keys over to Eric Bieniemy or Mike Kafka more,
Mhm.
or find an offensive assistant out there who is innovative and actually infuse something new into his offensive scheme.
Yep. Let's just address the elephant in the room. Laddie Morris, the guy who runs Arrowhead One, who I write for, has some psychology background and so forth. He wrote an open letter to Clark Hunt that Andy Reid's still being affected by the stuff that
Yeah,
happened with his kid the week before the Super Bowl. Do you
yeah.
do you think that there's potentially any of that going on?
I absolutely think there is. I
Yeah.
mean, the man's human. And unfortunately, it's not the first time he's gone through something tragic like this with one of his kids. And
No, horrible.
it's
Horrible.
it's got to really, there's no doubt that it's affecting him in my mind.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, Andy Reid is one of those things where I recall the 2013 season, and I've written about this, and I know you and I have talked about this, where I went to Philadelphia and went to a game, and I was like, oh, Andy Reid's just so frustrating and blah blah blah. And he ended his tenure with the Eagles going 4-12, but at the same time, he spent what 14 years there and won 9 playoff appearances, something to that
Yeah,
effect.
well, been to
I
the
mean,
NFC Championship game 3 years in a row, just like they did with the Chiefs. Yeah.
let's just throw an if out here. If we miss the playoffs, this will be a second time since 2013. And sure, we can sit here and gripe about we have Super Bowl ambitions, we have Patrick Mahomes, and we blah 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 blah. You know, it's just missing the playoffs twice in 9 years with the level of parity that the NFL has, I think, is something that's completely acceptable.
Yep.
And maybe there's just too much stuff lining up against us this year.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that losing Andy Reid because of a decision we make would be a massive mistake, and that you would find out how difficult it is to replace a guy like that.
Oh yeah.
Now,
I mean, look at what we had between Dick Vermeil and Andy Reid.
Exactly.
That says enough right there.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you would decide that we need to turn more of our roster than a lot of people would be comfortable with, I'm 100% with you on that. We're probably going to have to turn some players. We're going to be making some difficult decisions. But as far as I'm concerned, if we roll into next year with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Nick Bolton and Trey Smith and Willie Gay, I'm going to kind of quit asking questions after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd imagine you're probably going to come up with a dozen players that we just physically can't move. Like Thuney's going to be in there. Creed Humphrey, let's throw him in there. Creed Humphrey's awesome. So
he is. Yeah, he's been a great find.
Fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. And I also believe that we had a kind of messed up situation in the offseason where we had a couple of free agents that should have been playing for us that for whatever reason decided not to come. Like, literally, what the hell is wrong with Juju Smith-Schuster?
Have you seen his TikTok videos?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what the hell is wrong with Juju Smith-Schuster?
He's a unique guy. Yeah.
And how often does that guy make the decision to not come here? I mean,
yeah,
that was just weird. Like it was shocking to me that he didn't make the trip here. It really was. Another thing that I saw in some of the social media circles, there's talk about going after Melvin Ingram and a trade with Pittsburgh. And there's some gripe that, Brett Veach wasn't smart enough to get the guy signed when he was in our building. And now he's trying to trade for him. Mm-hmm. So, my question when we thought the defense was good, what did Melvin Ingram want at that point when he was sitting in our building? Because if he asked for something like 4 years and more than $1 guaranteed, why would you do that? And at this point, he wants out of Pittsburgh and is probably going to be a little more, desperate, if you will, but it still costs money or some kind of draft capital or something you're going to have to send to Pittsburgh. And it's just, an armchair quarterback second guessing decisions that were made in real time is kind of a fool's errand to me. And you can play the what if game all you want, but my next question, let's say they sign Melvin Ingram. What's the difference in our record right now?
I don't see much difference at all.
Are we maybe 4-3? Maybe 4-3? Have any of our
games because
so close that a couple of Melvin Ingram plays makes a difference?
No, because the close games that we were one play truly away from winning was not because of the defense. I mean, it was because the end of the Baltimore game, we had that. Charger game, I think we should have had that, but I don't think Melvin Ingram changes that.
I think Baltimore, Buffalo, and the Chargers, the offense takes care of business a little more, and that doesn't necessarily go down the same way. And let's just say we still lose 2 of those 3, 1 extra win changes a lot of the dynamic of how we're talking about this. It really does.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. And I mean, the Buffalo game just really sticks with me because I did not turn that game off because I didn't believe we were out of it until that last turnover. And it was just the offense quit being infallible.
Yeah.
And instead they were just awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, still statistically in that game, they were very good. It's just, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is ever going to be a guy who, you use the term reckless. I mean, he is a gunslinger. For him to actually go in and come with the mindset of, it's okay to punt here. I don't think he's ever going to have that mindset. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I do hope that he does come up with the mindset of, I've got the first down. Maybe I should just go ahead and go out of bounds or go ahead and slide. I think that's the balance he needs to find. And, things like the turnovers in Buffalo probably don't happen. And again, that's something that he can grow into.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So let's kind of move on for the sake of, keeping this going. So let's get into our normal stuff. What are you looking at for game 8 for week 8? And keep this to 30 seconds. What do you think is going to happen on Monday night?
I think they'll beat the Giants. I think that it'll still be somewhat uncomfortable, but I do see them. I don't see them covering. I saw the line on it as 9.5, but I do see them winning this game. And, we're probably going to make Daniel Jones look better than he really is.
Got it. Yeah, no, I would say that's probably going to be the case. I still think they win by 2 touchdowns when it's all said and done. They're going to make Daniel Jones look good, but they're still going to be, winning by 2 touchdowns. That's what I think.
I hope you're right.
All right. Any AFC or NFC notes you want to talk about?
Well, NFC, there's a big game going on right now. With the AFC, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals,
yes,
man.
We're recording on Thursday, and the Packers are playing the Cardinals, and they're winning right now.
But the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC is what stands out to me. I mean, they're the 1 seed right now. Whoever saw that coming?
It's crazy. No, I mean, the weekly fix that I do with Billy Truelove, I picked the Bengals a couple times early in the season, and we both looked at me kind of weird,
Mm-hmm.
But now, Burrow to Chase is looking like as good of a connection as there is.
I've got that connection on one of my fantasy teams, and it's paying dividends right now. Yeah.
Yep, I've been holding on to Chase, been pretty happy with that. But no, I agree. It's still the usual suspects. The AFC looks like Chargers, Ravens. We'll put the Bengals in their Bills situation. The NFC, the Packers are showing up tonight, and the Cardinals are obviously looking good. And, the Cowboys, we haven't talked about them in a week because they were on bye, but I think they're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Okay. Moving down the line, any old friends you got that you're thinking of?
Passanio had another sack on Monday night. So, I mean, not that I think what if with him, but, it's interesting how he's every time I see him to turn on the TV and to put on a Saints game, he's doing something.
Yep. Would have been super awesome if he would have done stuff with us.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Fisher is a guy that I just keep an eye on. I mean, he's doing a good job with the Colts. I'm not surprised. I understand the personnel move. In fact, I would say that I pretty categorically agreed with it. I'm glad to see him doing well. I wish he was still doing well with us. You know what I mean?
Yep. So. Same here.
Okay. The fantasy football stat of the week, I think, has to be what Derrick Henry did. Again.
What you mean? What he didn't do?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody jump out at you from a fantasy standpoint this last week?
I mean, Jamar Chase has been very good. let's see. Looking at our team,
dude, I'm talking about a week, not a season.
well,
yes,
so
Chase is interesting for a
yeah,
season.
DeAndre Swift is starting to come on. He's been a guy that's always been on my radar because he came out, I think, as the best pro prospect at the running back position when he came out of Georgia. And he's looking like he's actually a very good receiver as well. So when you're looking for, that Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey type, I'm not putting him up there with them, but he can get you stats similar to them.
Dude, the dude's had one bad week. And by bad week, I mean he was 8.9. And my general view on fantasy is when you're picking players, you obviously want the guy that's going to score you 20 points. But more than the guy that scores you 20 points, you want the guy that's never going to score you less than 10.
No, he has almost 400 yards receiving as a running back.
Yeah.
Wow.
But in our league, he is averaging 19.6 points a week.
Yeah.
So that's twice as good as you would expect. So
yeah.
Chase isn't coming on. Swift isn't coming on. He's been there.
Yes, he's been steady. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's talk songs and get into final take. You have a song. I can tell this is a week that you put a lot of thought into this, and you got something you're going to be good with here.
I have 3 songs.
Okay, I'm going to go with 2.
It started out with Fire, Water, Burn by the Bloodhound Gang.
Yep.
Then it went to The Thrill Is Gone with BB King, just kind of coming to, gripes with, this isn't your 2020, 2019 Chiefs. And then where I'm at now, and it came on to me today, and this is what I've been saying all night, is it's time for this team to do the evolution. So Do the Evolution by Pearl Jam is my final song, and I'm ready to see, hopefully this offense can at least adapt to what the defense is doing to them. And defensively, I mean, hopefully we see some plays being made by athletes out there on the field. And, I just, as we've been talking most of the night, it's like, what can this team do? Well, I mean, that's pretty much why I came up with that song, Do the Evolution.
Yep. So I have 3 songs, and I have to admit I came up with all 3 of them while we've been sitting here. 2 of the 3 in the past 5 minutes. And this is some of the joys of being a professional DJ on the weekends and stuff. I think quickly about stuff like this. So handful of things that have jumped out. So you made a comment about Patrick Mahomes still being 26. So I'm going to go with What's My Age Again by Blink-182. What's my age again? What do you want from the dude? We're a work in progress. Are we going to get there? I don't know, but it's going to be fun. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next one. And the one that I put probably the most thought into, there's a country band called Reckless Kelly, and they're named after just jump on the Wikipedia page and look for Ned Kelly, who was an Australian outlaw, if you will. They called him Reckless, and he had this helmet that he wore when he would get into gunfights. They ended up stringing him up, which was the end of Ned Kelly. But Reckless Kelly is a great band, and probably my favorite song by them is called Ragged as the Road. And so I just think of the situation they're at right now, talking about Patrick Mahomes being reckless, ragged as the road I'm on. And the whole thing, like the hook from that song is I'm rolling faster than a roller coaster. And that's really where I think we are. This season is blowing by. It really is. This has been a ragged road so far. We've looked a little reckless and things of that nature, but we're still being talked about every week because we are still part of this. We really are. And I think that we're going to be there at the end. And I'm looking ahead to these week 17 and 16 matchups. We go to Cincinnati to play the Bengals on week 16. And I'm officially asking you right here in front of all of our viewers, will you make that road trip with me down to Cincinnati? Because those tickets are $50 to get into that building at this point.
Wow.
Yes.
I will have to check my calendar.
We are going to road trip down to Cincinnati. And I think that we really need to grassroots and official tailgate for Arrowhead Kingdom. So I'm putting that on camera right now. The third song that I have, I'm actually kind of drawing a blank because I got myself into this Reckless Kelly situation. Oh, the third song that I have. So the band Muse. I remember the song Starlight came out. I'm like, oh, these guys are really interesting and everything like that. But what I really do believe was their best song actually came out before that, and it's called Time Is Running Out. And
That's a great song.
And I think that that's a little bit where we're at right now. I don't think time is gone, but time is running out. And the thing that I like about that song is it's got probably the most pulsing, just driven type of vibe to it. And I really hope that the team is getting to that point. I thought they were there after Washington. That's what we talked about. We took a step backwards. But yeah, I time is running out. We need to get this right. At this point, I don't care what our seed is. I think the number one's kind of waved by, but realistically it hasn't, But let's just assume the number one's gone. I don't care if we get in as a 7. I would kind of love to win the Super Bowl as the first 7 seed to do it.
Yep.
So
yeah. I got in the back and forth with some schmuck that basically was telling people this isn't a playoff team. Just stop getting your hopes up. And it's like, shut up. I mean,
exactly.
Really?
You can do whatever you want. I'm going to get my hopes up. But anyway,
I pretty much called him an ass, and I mean that's
exactly.
Call it like it is. So,
exactly. All right. Final take. What do you got?
All right. So Monday night, there's something else very important going on. Tim Grunhard is being inducted into the Chiefs Hall of Fame during halftime. And I'm really hoping that they have a video of that on YouTube because I know ESPN is not going to show it. But for those of you who grew up in the 90s with the Chiefs, Tim Grunhard was literally on every one of those teams. He started with the Chiefs in 1990. He retired with the Chiefs in 2000. He made a streak of 120 straight starts. Started 164 games out of 169 that he appeared in. What was really surprising to me when I was reading, so there's a nice write-up of him on the Chiefs homepage, although I think it was back in May, that I'm looking at. He only made one Pro Bowl team, and it was in 1999. So I would have thought that Tim would have at least been an alternate, especially in the mid 90s, but one Pro Bowl, I would argue he probably deserved more than that. That guy was just, you never heard Tim's name much. That's because that man was doing his job, and he's been very, very involved in the Kansas City community. He has been on and off radio shows. He even was an assistant coach under Charlie Weiss. He can probably tell you some interesting stories of that during his time at KU. He's been a head coach at Bishop Miege. So he's very, very recognized within Kansas City. And I'm really happy for him getting into the Hall of Fame. It's very well deserved.
That's a cheers to him. And I hope for your sake that he's not pissed off at you calling more attention to him, because for all we know, he might enjoy being, under the radar and stuff like that. But secretly, he's probably pretty happy saying that. And
he's not under the radar, but yeah.
I will raise a Tank 7, Tim Grunhard, and that's an incredible take.
Tim is still on many commercials on TV and on the radio, and then he does quite a bit of radio spots during the week. So yeah,
sure, yeah, got it. So I feel the need to mostly just be quiet after that, but anybody who's watched our show knows that I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to make a quick last take, and I'm just going to give a shout out to our group, Arrowhead Kingdom. Regardless of how this game went this last weekend, we showed up and showed out in Nashville. And the next place that I would want everybody to look at Vegas. There are 4 events going on. So go to our Facebook page, go to our website. We have an incredible lineup of stuff going on in Vegas. So I really, really hope that everybody's looking and knowing that if you are on the road looking to go to a Chiefs game, we are going to be your destination. And Nashville showed that. and Vegas is going to show that. So yeah, good night,
Yes, it will.
Cheesecake.
Chiefs.
Peace.